Is it streaming? Am I not live? Okay, same thing. Share. Copy link. Alright. Command V. Adore my labrum. Probably 3 years ago, but it got really bad last summer. Found out was a bad tear a year ago and tried the rehab route. It only got worse, and now just got the surgery. Think because about to send it. Okay. We're gonna watch this anyway. So we have at least one viewer. I guess I'll wait till I have a few people in here. How do I see the chat? Yeah, I guess. Alright, you know what? We're just gonna rip it. Even if I'm streaming to no one, this will be good practice. I guess I could see how many people are watching anyway. Split view. What is studio mode? We're just gonna do live control panel chat. Whatever, just better run it. Yeah, guys, so this is my testimony of how God revealed himself to me through. This is my testimony about how God revealed himself to me through sport, injury, and just life experience. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. So thank you for joining me here today as we delve into my journey of finding God through pursuing my highest endeavors in athletics. Live stream here, camera over there, so I can post it later in a higher quality. Hopefully, eventually, the monitor will be from my camera, and the light will be better because, oh man, the battery is dead. I guess we'll use this lighting for now. For today, we're going to have just like regular overhead lighting. Anyway. First of all, I just want to say thank you for watching this video. So this career of mine all started at the age of 4 when I first tried gymnastics, but wouldn't continue until I was 6. Hey, let's go. Thanks for joining down. At the age of 6, when I tried it for the second time, I fell deeply in love with the sport and what it had to offer. And, by the way, I'm just reading my testimony. A never-ending pursuit of becoming better, a limitless amount of skills and the ability to show off in front of everyone. As a kid who loved and thrived under the spotlight, this was nothing short of a dream come true to find. I pursued gymnastics with all my heart and quickly found that I had 2 large goals ahead of me. One would be to get a full ride to college, and the other would be to win the Olympics. Little did I know the journey I had set myself upon, would lead to a concussion at the age of just 8 years old. A little backstep. I grew up attending St. Paul Orthodox Church in Dearborn, Michigan. The building has now been given back to God. So if you're looking for it online right now, that's why you can't find it. I do remember one moment when we had a kids show and tell at church, and I brought my mushroom. It's a pommel horse trainer, if you don't know. And did gymnastics in the church, which was really sweet. Where am I? Oh man, this is good practice. I actually need this. So I showed the church my routine. Back to the story. At the age of 9, gymnastics became a priority for me and my sister, and it became really hard for my parents to keep up with that schedule and also take us to church. My mom gave us the decision if we wanted to keep going, and we both, me and my sister, decided that we wanted to spend Sunday sleeping in and getting ready for the week of training ahead. I was too young to know it at the time or even understand who God was, but this was my first true recollection of placing my sport in place of our Lord. Gymnastics would be at the top of my altar for a while after that, and even sometime to this day, it still is. By placing gymnastics at the top, it became my identity everywhere I went. At school, I was a gymnast. At church, which I wouldn't attend for a long time, I was a gymnast. At home, I was a gymnast. And at the gym, well, I think you can guess it, I was a gymnast. Carrying the identity of being a gymnast and holding my success near to my heart made me feel good because it gave me some sort of validity in the eyes of others. While it gave me some validity, I also had my first experience of persecution for being a gymnast. I got made fun of at school as a kid because people simply didn't understand. They would relay thoughts that their parents fed them about the sport, such as all male gymnasts being gay. And this persecution just made me want to get better at my sport and prove that I was better than all of them. At this point, now I began to feed the resentment I had towards these kids that were making me feel less than. I would use their words to propel me higher so I could step on them in the end. This is where my relationship with gymnastics became even more toxic than it was before. As I entered into middle school, everyone started to grow up a bit, and I started to get the gymnastics physique we all know of. Now, for the same thing I was being made fun of, the kids at my school started praising me for because it made me look a certain way, as well as made me stronger than they could imagine for a kid my size. This really got to my head and let me think that I was naturally better than my peers and blinded me to the work it took to get me to where I was. I would later see the same lesson with social media by the time I was in college. But we'll save that story for another day. Anyway, I thought I was better than those kids around me, as well as received validation from girls for the first time in my life. At this point, just before high school, my ego was inflating faster than I could keep up with. Just in time for me to utilize the body gymnastics had given me to propel my internet fame on social media. All this going on had made me lose the sight of my one biggest dream of going to and winning the Olympics. It was still in the back of my head, but wasn't the priority any more than having fun and enjoying the success I had already gained. My talent was still very noticed, and I did have many full ride offers and chose to come to Penn State for a reason I cannot explain, other than as soon as I stepped into the campus, I knew it was the place I had to be. This took people in my corner on a bit of a turn, as I was a Michigan fan my whole life and had the opportunity to be a Wolverine as well. I came to Penn State as the third-ranked gymnast of my class, as well as being the number one class in the country out of every team. I thought I was what you would call him. College would just inflate my ego even more. In the beginning, with everyone around me persuading me to take advantage of my status and use it for personal pleasure. I fell into this trap that I now see clearly. That's at an what? Oh, wow, that's at an. That's Satan. It I don't know why it corrected that like that. It's literally that's at an Satan. That Satan used to deceive me as well as bring many others down with me. So yeah, I fell into the trap that I now see clearly, that Satan used to deceive me as well as bring many others down with me. With the influence I had also came a responsibility I was not yet aware of to keep an upright, good integrity by example, because those around me would inevitably follow. Anyway, I wandered far from that upright path, and the further I got, the less I was able to make a sound decision, or any decision at that. I was following the path of the most pleasure, or at least pain or struggle. I was following the path of most pleasure, or least pain or struggle, which would inevitably lead me straight to the opposer, being a life filled with pain and struggle and little to no pleasure. Subconsciously, I knew the life I was living wasn't virtuous or going to bring me my highest goals. I also wanted to believe that I was working hard enough and that I was able to achieve anything no matter what, because that's what I was being told. Work hard and you can do exactly what you want. You see, the lie there is that you can't actually do exactly what you want. You can sometimes if you aim accordingly and work just, but if you don't, however, there's no way you could ever see the pinnacle of the idea come into existence. I surely didn't because I spent lots of time, or actually most of my time, not aiming properly. I did work hard in the gym, but most likely with a bad attitude. I only wanted to work hard, or even showed a glimpse of my potential when I felt good. A life led by feelings is a life that is unstable. We will always feel many things in a given day, so if we are without a rock, we are bound to sway. And sway I did from one thing to the next. It was almost as if I enjoyed the major swings, the highs, the high highs, and the low lows, even though deep down I couldn't stand to look at myself in the mirror. It was my sophomore year that I began orienting myself in a manner that was at least a bit more admirable. I wanted less to do with the parties and more to do with the trophies that would fill my shelves. I wanted gold, and I wanted to be praised as the best. I wanted everyone to know my name. I wanted anything but to be called the same. So my walk got better and the results did show, but still again my ego would grow. And then I would find myself 2 concussions more, one on high bar and one on the floor. 6 months apart, this was no good sign. This year was also my closest I had been to making the senior national team. My Winter Cup performance was not great and led me to be the first guy out of the team. This fueled me for the rest of the season and got me my first All-American, but then to get a 6th concussion the week between Classics and Champs, which at Classics I came 4th. So junior year began for me coming off a concussion, but also my most successful year as a gymnast and as an NIL learner thus far. I was determined and I was working harder than I ever worked before. I knew that I was close, and I knew that I felt like I deserved to be a national team. Clearly, I didn't deserve to be on national team. Otherwise, I would have been on national team, and that's something I just couldn't accept. Either way, I would work harder than I'd ever worked before, and I wasn't going to let anything get in my way. I wanted this goal so badly that I even let it hurt my relationship with my former girlfriend. We would argue and we would fight over stupid things, and mainly it stemmed from me putting my career and my future on top of hers, me deciding that I was more important and she was just supposed to help me get there, me thinking that it was all about me. It was always me, me, me. I went as far as to end It went as far as to end in a breakup, and I decided to do this because I felt like I had to. Our relationship had gotten so bad because we couldn't even see each other, even though we were looking. We didn't even know who each other were, even though we were just looking in the mirror at the same time. Either way, if the relationship wanted to continue ever or not end with us hating each other, I knew it had to end there, so I ended it. I remember I remember, I don't even say I typed this with my words because I can only use one hand right now. I remember faddling. I remember that night. If you guys have been following me for a while, you've seen the video of me screaming in my car that I posted on Mother's Day of 2023. But that video was actually taken that day. I broke up with my girlfriend. I was sitting in my car, bawling my eyes out, and I started cursing God out, telling him I was going to do this, that, or the other thing. All these bad things I was going to indulge in, but this is the first time I talked to God in probably 7 years, and he told me to call my coach, Randy. I had no idea why I would call Randy, but I knew I had to do it. He took me under his wing and got me through these next few weeks and months and honestly to where I am now, but I had no idea the journey I'd set off on at all. I knew that I made the right decision that I had to make national team. And I decided that if I just made national team that year, that all my problems would go away and she would see that I was who I said I was and that I was an honorable man. I was trying to prove it to myself and her at the same time. Lo and behold, we came to Winter Cup 2023, my seventh meet of the year leading up to the meet. Leading up to the meet was very hard for me because obviously I was a mess. I just broken up with the love of my life and I couldn't even train some days. Either way, we got to the competition. And I'm terrified that I'm not going to make national team. I don't know it, but it's clear to see now that I was terrified. I was having nightmares 5 days before the competitions. I had a dream that my grip snapped and just the day before the competition, I woke up from a nightmare of me tearing my Achilles. It was clear that my mind was a wreck and I was in danger in my own mind. And I competed day one and had a few falls and I was quite embarrassed. I ended up with the score of the 77 and I was 13th place. After day one, I was also number 7. I was in 13th place after day one. And I was also number 7. Okay. What? Day 2, I was determined. And seeing those 3 sevens, I decided that it was my meet. I decided that I was going to be the lucky one. I was going to be the one that made national team. Once I saw this, and I was a big fan of XXXTentacion at the time, I had the song 777 on repeat. Probably not a very good song if you're trying to have a calm mind in a steady competition. Anyway, the 7th event of the competition, because it was event 1 of day 2, would be rings. And I had new grips on because I saw my teammate snap his grip day 1 of competition. I thought it was a dream come true. I saw his grip break and I put on new ones so that mine wouldn't. Just 5 minutes before the competition in the one-touch warm-up, my grip snapped. I flipped all the way to my back. I had no idea where I was in the air and this resulted in my 7th concussion. Now it seemed like the day that everything will go my way and everything will be better. I forced it to become the day. Well, honestly, I didn't force anything. I tried to force it to go my way, but God decided to strip that all away from me. I wasn't allowed to post on social media. Oh man. See, when having a concussion, I wasn't allowed to post on social media. So my ever-dying brand continued to dwindle even more in my as well as my gymnastics career. Well, they were telling me, and my gymnastics career, well, they were telling me it was over. I remember driving my car home one day from a training appointment and looking down and seeing that I had 77,777 miles on my car. I was confused, and at this moment I knew God was real. You know, it sounds crazy, but I was 7 weeks away from NCAAs, and when the concussion happened, and I was 77 days away from Mother's Day. Well, all this is important, you'll find out later, but seeing those numbers made me kind of go crazy and realize that I needed to change, but I didn't really change at first. After 5 weeks of the most intense vestibular therapy and brain rehab that I had ever experienced with some of the best trainers I believe to be in the world, we are just 2 weeks away from NCAAs, and they decided that I could do handstands and pommel horse. This was huge because we just came second at Big Tens, and we were only 1 point away on a single pommel horse score from winning the meet. So I did about 3 routines before NCAAs, and did a really easy routine because we needed something I could hit guaranteed. So my coaches trusted me and they put me in the lineup. Day 1 was a little rough. Wow, there's so many errors in the text. It's making it hard to read. Day 1 was a little rough, but I got through it. And we qualified to day 2, which would have been my Grandpa Burke's 100th birthday. And I decided, that this was a gift for him. All it was him seeing me do exactly what he wanted to see me do. I was focused on him being in heaven and nothing else. I didn't care about the team. I didn't care about myself, even my performance or the award that would come after. I was just thinking about him. I wanted to represent him well, and I wanted to do justice by his name and by my bloodline, and I never felt more prepared for a moment in my life, and I enjoyed every single bit of it. It was complete tunnel vision in that moment when the judge saluted me. I smiled and saluted and looked down at the horse and said, "Happy birthday, Grandpa." In that moment, I did the most stunning routine I'd ever done, the highest execution of the entire meet, and it felt like I hadn't moved a muscle. I got down from the podium and I told my coach, "Randy, I didn't feel like I did it. I don't feel like I even did that." And he said, "I understand." I don't understand how he could have understood because, well, I didn't even understand. Now I understand, and this kind of relates to John 13:7. You may not understand now. I need to look at that verse. Anyway, so I can get a word for it. But, which was also my number and placement at Winter Cup. You may not understand now, but you will later. Later on, which is also something Randy said when I got that 7th concussion. And we were trying to decide if I was okay to compete, and I said, "I think I'm okay," and he said, "We have bigger plans." I didn't understand what kind of plans he was talking about. I thought he was talking about the Olympics, but his plans were always heavenward anyway. That would end up being my 8th place All-American. I don't even know where I'm at. I need to edit this anyway. Get the All-American. 7 weeks since the concussion, I vowed to give up social media till I understood. And I didn't understand, but I understood something. And that was that if you deny the things that you want in your life, you might just find a glimpse of hope. You might just find a glimpse of the true glory and true purpose, and what true purpose actually means. I continued to not live a very virtuous life, and honestly, at first, this just made my ego 10 times bigger. I went home that summer thinking I was the coolest person in the world and that somehow I was better than everyone else. We were a year away from the Olympics, and this became a vision that I hadn't. We were a year away from the Olympics, and this just became a vision in my head that. But now we would come up to Mother's Day, May 15th, 2023, My mom would let me know that I was not living the life of virtue that would lead me to any of my goals. I didn't want to hear it, and I didn't want to hear it because it hurt, and it hurt because it was true. I had conversations with my sister that would be me and her sitting in the car and her crying to me, telling me I was giving up my life and that everything I'd ever worked for, I was just throwing away. My ego was so big that I couldn't even understand what she was telling me, that she was telling me the truth. I just wanted to believe that I was going to reach my goals no matter what and however I did it. Soon enough, Fred Richard would hit me up and say, "Hey, do you want to make some content?" And I would say, "Yeah." I spent that entire day with him creating content, and it was great. Through doing so, I was able to pick his brain and see how he was doing it. It was very apparent to me that he was the hardest working person in the entire country, at least in the sport of gymnastics, maybe in everything, and opened my eyes that maybe I wasn't doing everything that I could to reach my goals. And if I wasn't doing that, and my competitors were, there was probably no way I was going to make that Olympic team. So this invoked the change that I needed. Started to read and I started to write to track my progress and track my habits. I started with Atomic Habits, and I'd read a few books, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life and Beyond Order, that year as well, which would be the first two books I read on my own accord. But then Atomic Habits would give me a process to actually change. So I thank James Clear for that. And James, if you ever see this, shout out James, and shout out Fred. I returned to Penn State that summer with a mindset that I needed to do better and I needed to make those around me better. And not just that I needed to, but I could, somehow in some way, just by making tiny changes. I remember one Saturday night we were with the team having fun partying. And I realized that there were people around me that probably didn't want to be doing what they were doing. And I felt this deep desire to want to change the team so that they could feel comfortable living out their faith. I realized that if the team had to change, it was probably my fault that they had to change. And if it was my fault, that meant the only way it was going to change was if I changed. So that next day would have been the first day that I ever stepped into church because I wanted to go to church. So I went to Holy Trinity, which is our local Orthodox church in State College, and they graciously took me in. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I knew I was in the right place the day I stepped in, that first Sunday morning I came. As I came in.
Why is it doing this?
That first Sunday morning I was in my freshman year competition warm-up suit. I almost even wore a hat into the church. Still, I didn't have it right, but I started to give up the things that I knew weren't helping me to reach my goals within those next 2 months. It was a complete life 180, and this was very painful for my ever-corrupted soul. I also had began attending a Bible study with Penn State Christian Athletics, and I would find a family in all of them. I remember one of the first sessions I attended, we learned about fear, and 2 Timothy 1-7. We would learn that Jesus gives us a sound mind and a spirit, and courage and strength, and not the spirit of fear. I remember a special thing that we learned that night from McKenna was if you step into the fear merry-go-round, you will be certain to be led by fear, and stuff just won't go right. And I'd seen that in my life. It was weird with the numbers for me, but the first 7 I stepped into fear, and then at U.S. Classics, I was using those same grips that I was supposed to use at Winter Cup, and I was afraid wouldn't break, so I didn't wear them. But I trusted in the Lord in that time at U.S. Classics, and if they broke, it was for a greater purpose. So I stepped into the courage that God gave me, and lo and behold, the grips did not break, and I landed on my feet. It led me to feelings I hadn't felt before, and all to go to bed at 9:30, not having really any friends, and wake up at 6:30 for a goal I couldn't see. I felt like I was going crazy, and I almost felt depressed at times. These feelings with seeing everyone else going seeing everything else going on around me quickly led to a very harsh fall for about 4 months. About 4 months later, I would start indulging and partying and all the fun again. And I had fallen out of the grace that I had been given, and the grace that I had been given would quickly seem to evaporate with injuries. My elbow hurt, and then I destroyed my back, and this was my senior year. Granted, I did have a 5th year in my back pocket, but this would have been my last year had I not had that. And I still couldn't get it right. So I began my senior year injured and lost and confused. Soon I would cut out all the bad activities and return to the church after about 2 months outside. Through that and through Bible studies that I had been attending the entire senior year and the books I'd been reading with the Bible, I would have a complete destruction of my ego. This was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I remember a special verse to me would be Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he shall direct thy paths. This was the memory verse we were tasked to inscribe into our hearts with the Bible study that was led by my coach. And this would lead me to understand that the Bible wasn't about me, and that what I was reading in Daniel, the prophecy about the 77s, didn't have anything to do with me. Even though 62 weeks after my concussion was Easter, and the Messiah would return, and that 70 weeks after the concussion, which felt like the most holy would be anointed, was Olympic trials. So I put myself in place of where God is supposed to be, just as many of us do every single day when we choose our will over his, or we choose the devil's will over his. Idolatry at its finest. Lost the spot again.
Idolatry at its finest. What the heck?
Idolatry at its finest. So my heart would be softened in that moment. It changed for me going to church and living a life of virtue so I could reach my goals too. I'm going to reach my goals so I can glorify Jesus at the top. And through that, and I thought that was exactly what it was about. I thought, yep, I'm going to reach my goals and tell everyone about Jesus because he needs me to do that. Still, I was lost. But I was finding a way, and Jesus was paving it for me. I prayed a lot, and I kept going to church, and eventually I saw the most light I'd ever seen at Big Tens when I kept praying to be shown the path to becoming the Big Ten champion. Oh, I might have stopped recording. Hold up. Oh, yeah. Just stop recording. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Anyway. There's a whole lot more. I think that was a good practice round though. But then after this, I would open it up to questions. But the camera's going to be up there. But I'm glad I gave this a nice little go. Nice little test. Anyway. About a bit. Thank you, Dom, for watching. This is actually part where we are at right now. Actually, I'll keep going. If you're still in here, let me know. Okay, wait. I'll give you this next part. Just because this part's cool. You're actually in this part. Where was Big Ten's when I kept praying to be shown the path to become the Big Ten champion. I remember one day one wasn't great, but I still had two more chances on parallel bars and high bar. That night I was writing my journal, and I remember I was writing a poem about something. Something about I fell short, but I'm proud. And then down. Ended up sending me a Bible verse that night in Peter. I don't remember exactly where it was, but something along the lines that God resists the proud. So immediately I realized that my name is Michael, which means who is like God, and I had some sort of ego tied into the identity of my name. But my middle name was also Paul, which means to be humble, and I was forgetting that. So I realized in that moment that no one could be first place. Even if we stood at the top of the podium, there was still a reason that we were there. And that reason was Jesus being above us. And that was Jesus above us and the reason that we got there. And I had this distinct vision of me standing on the top of the podium pointing up at him. And I could actually see Jesus floating above me in the form of the Holy Spirit, or maybe it was my guardian angel. Either way, I knew that I was being led by the Spirit. So parallel bars didn't go my way. And I realized that, so at that point I still had one more chance. I also realized that if I was going to become the Big Ten champion, and this is me realizing that I was already on the path to becoming that the routine I was about to do would be effortless, and everything would go exactly according. So at that moment, I said, what do I need to do? And I remembered I just need to do exactly what I do every day. So I didn't try to block out everyone around me, but I just got in my zone. I closed my eyes, I visualized my routine, and I felt this presence, this aura that I couldn't really explain other than I already felt like I knew I was going to do a perfect routine. I remember chalking up, and a piece of advice my dad had given me was to do this one for me. Not for him, not for my team, not for my coaches, but for me. And similarly, in a book I had read by Kristen Butler, The Comfort Zone, I'd realized that I was doing this not only for me right now, but for my 8-year-old self and for my 80-year-old self. And I remembered my expanded self name, and I decided I was going to do it for him. And all of a sudden I realized, in this presence of self, of God, of awareness, of eternity, of pure peace and presence, I did that routine. I caught my releases quite far, and someone would say, but I caught them, and I stuck my dismount. It was electric, and I bear hugged both of my coaches and got the gold medal. I got the gold medal, and I went home, and I was so excited, and I remember praying that God would make me humble, which is a very dangerous prayer to pray if you don't know what's about to happen. You see, if you pray to be humbled, God will humble you. And 2 weeks later was NCAAs, and all I knew was I wanted to see the path to becoming an NCAA champion. Well, that didn't go well for me. Again, I was led by fear of not becoming the champion and not making it to U.S. championships and Olympic trials. And then I shot myself in the foot, landed on my face many times. I was devastated knowing that my path to the Olympics was over. I was devastated. Wow, yeah, it still goes on. But yeah, dude. Yeah, this is the pod page. Check out the website, ocym.co. I'll send you the Instagram too. God's got this somewhere, definitely. I have no idea where, to be honest. So yeah, this is the Instagram page. It's very black and white. I might eventually start adding some color. I think once I go live with the thing, it's going to change to more something like this. But starting out very, very black and white. But yeah, eventually maybe some silver, gold, purple, and blue. don't even know how long this was going for. Does it say? Let's see. 40 minutes. Oh yeah, this testimony's good. You think I should just video it or should I live stream it? Like I could video it and post it and then live stream after it plays, you know? Like I could live stream the video. You know what I'm saying? So live stream while I'm doing it. Alright. I need to revise this a little bit. Because some of it's like a little bit. I don't want to mess it up. I probably won't have that many people watching for the first one. But essentially the format is live stream while I'm videoing. Take the video. Don't even chop it up. Post it raw on the awesome website. And on the YouTube channel, and then clip the whole thing up and post like 5 clips a day of the podcast. Do 1 podcast a week. I have a lot planned out. I need to write more scripts though, because the script, honestly, I wrote a lot of it when I was at school, but I wrote most of it today. Like starting from, literally starting from when I got to school to the very end, I wrote all of that today, but like I said, I typed it with my voice. Yeah, it's gonna be sweet. I'm excited. And then, this is something I also really want to do. It's one of the posts. I think eventually I want to make these pendants. I think they're dope. Oh, thank you. Alright. It's time for me to go eat some ice cream. Appreciate you for joining. I think we're going to go live next week. I need to get a little piece so I can go for my camera. Isn't it cool? I'm going to make them eventually. I got to learn like where to make them. Probably sterling silver for the first few, but I'll get one to you. I got to learn how to make. I don't know where to make them. Like how, but I'll figure that out. Anyway, I will be hopefully doing this first live stream a week from today. At this time, I think from 8 to 9 is the goal. So 1 week, stay tuned. Well, please let me know. I will. Go follow the account. Follow Awesome. Here. Check out the Instagram DM. And I'll let you know when they're live. Sweet. Alright, I'm dipping. Peace. Love, the vibes, and as always, be eternal.